welcome back to the CineSkinny. It is the film podcast from the Skinny magazine. We're having a great time. Photos of this recording setup may well end up on the socials. If they don't, just send us an email at CineSkinny@skinny.co.uk. We've got a veritable...
You're going to email and send me some pictures. What?
Well, I'm going to describe it, Jamie. God. My God. Don't interrupt.
For all the pervs out there.
Yeah.
Send me some photos.
Yeah. All the pervs who want to see our piss poor cable management can just get in touch. And that's all they're getting to see. I'm Peter, the host of this podcast. Jamie is also here, as you can tell.
Hello.
Anahit is also here.
Hello.
And Ellie is also here.
Hello, I'm also here.
And Ellie was the only one who didn't start immediately disparaging me or calling me a pervert. So Ellie's my favourite so far. But it could all change in the course of the next hour or so.
I helped set up, so I can't take any heat for... I can't put you under any heat for the setup right now.
Exactly.
It's partly my baby.
And we did have a good laugh as we were setting up on this weird table thing outer spaces at the Skinny's new office about how this was weird and looked kind of odd and that people wouldn't believe that this is how we live. But there you go.
They really wouldn't.
No.
Weren't we talking like last week or something about doing like a workshop for podcasting, and instead of it being like a fancy like this is how you do a podcast with two microphones that don't work and no heating. I think we should run that workshop.
Oh yeah, it was because I'd been on a sort of workshop where someone was like had a much fancier setup and said we went to a professional studio and got like an engineer in to do all the editing and audio, and then it's like we're just like huddled around a radiator with like 4 mics that are all different. One might be buzzing if I move it slightly. Peter's got a weird Freddie Mercury setup again, as he likes to do.
It's called a microphone stand, Jamie, you Philistine. Anyway, we're having a good time. And crucially, Jamie didn't do what I feared he might and name the person who ran that podcast workshop. So we're legally all right. Let's carry on with the episode. It's good we're getting all the patter out early doors because it's not exactly a laugh-a-minute selection of films that we've got, but they are all very good. So that's good. So this is the last review episode of 2025, so we want to get some things in under the wire, potentially because some of them are in our Films of the Year top 10 that we're going to be putting out an episode on next week, and it would be weird to have loads of films in there that we hadn't previously ever mentioned or made any attempt to talk about. So the new Joachim Trier, the new Jafar Panahi, and Laura Poitras' Seymour Hersh documentary, all to come in the fullness of time. But Jamie, you were going to tell me what you've been watching. That's the premise of the first bit of the podcast. Seamless, absolutely seamless. And this gap that you're leaving is really helping with that.
I'm waiting for you to stop talking.
Interrupt at any time.
So
just whenever you're ready.
He always does it. Yeah, one of the more interesting films I've seen recently is The Running Man, the new Edgar Wright film. Now, it's not a particularly good film, I think. And the original from 1987 or 88, something like that, with Arnie Schwarzenegger, isn't particularly great either. But,
Steady on.
But this one, I don't know. I think say what you want about the 80s one, at least it had a kind of satirical force. It was kind of like it knew what it was about. Whereas I think this one's a bit confused. And I think partly that's because Wright's working with like a big studio, and it's kind of shaved off a bit of his weirdness, his idiosyncrasy as a filmmaker. But yeah, so I think this one sticks a bit closer to the original book. If you don't know the story, it's about a guy called Ben Richards, I think is his name, who gets signed up to be part of this competition called The Running Man, which is basically you're set out and like there's some people hunting you essentially, and you've got to survive for 30 days in this story. But yeah, the tone is a bit all over the place. I think I get the feeling that Edgar Wright is trying to put in some of his Edgar Wright style stuff. And a couple of scenes it comes off, but then a lot of it is just like generic Hollywood filmmaking. But what makes this film actually worth watching is if you are from Glasgow or know the city of Glasgow well, because it's mostly shot in Glasgow, and I can't think of a recent Hollywood film that's been shot in Glasgow that uses the city so well. Like it actually uses the Glasgow locations, yeah, in such a fun, interesting way. And interestingly, this, even though it's like a dystopian film, where the like is meant to take down all these kind of rundown cities, they don't really change Glasgow very much. It looks almost identical. So they use like the Savoy Centre is like meant to be downtown New York, like this kind of like rundown part of New York. Like there's some tenements in Cathcart are used as like a part of Boston. They use the hydro. They use like the motorway. They even use like Buchanan bus station and make it look cool and dystopian at some point.
What is the hydro meant to be?
I think the hydro is like a casino in like Las Vegas or something like that. There's one of the runners is like, because you get money to be a runner, and she goes and blows it all at a casino, and there's a big shootout like outside the hydro. So it's really fun. I would say, like, just it's worth watching just to like check out the location work. And I'd love to see more films use Glasgow, because like the Batman like used one scene, or like like other films that come here and you can barely tell it's Glasgow, or like Indiana Jones. There's a scene in Glasgow and you can barely tell because of all the CGI. But Edgar Wright really uses this like the streets of Glasgow in a fun way, but he doesn't change it that much, so it's so recognisably Glasgow. But I guess thinking about Glasgow, it's a bit of a weird city, and it's a whole mishmash of like different architecture, so it can look kind of futuristic and run down at the same time. So yeah, worth a watch for that.
But not as good as the original Running Man.
I mean, I haven't seen that in a long time. I suspect that is a terrible film, but
Hey.
but that, at least that film tonally is like its own thing. It's like it's very funny in its satire, and it's very brutal in its violence. And I think the problem with The Running Man is it tries to like be a comedy and a like violent film, and it actually comes off as a bit fascist or something. The ending is actually bizarre. So like there's a few things wrong with it. I don't know what's happened with the script. But
The fascism.
Yeah, it tried to be
The
fun.
narrative
It tried to be funny.
sure
It ended up being fascist at the end.
I'm sure Edgar Wright isn't a fascist, but
Jesus
he's made a kind of a fascist ending to a film.
So qualified support for the location scouting on The Running Man ? Marks over the rest of the film.
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful. Anahi, how are you planning to follow that?
Not really with fascism, to be honest. Have I seen any? Oh, well, I rewatched Wake Up Dead Man yesterday in the cinema. I think that's kind of about fascism in a way. It's so good. So good. Josh O'Connor just really does have the most perfect face. Like, it's just such a good face. I just love his face so much.
A lot of ear and nose going on.
What?
There's-
Yeah, I know.
like-
that works for me though.
Yeah, no, I'm not complaining. It's just like
Yeah. A lot of
There's
ear,
a lot of ear.
a lot of nose. Yeah. He, never mind. Actually, I'm not gonna digress. What else have I watched? I watched Field of Dreams for the first time. I thought it was boring.
Have you seen the is it John Mulaney thing at the Oscars?
No, what?
Is that his name, John Mulaney? Yeah, where he just basically his intro to the Oscars is telling the plot of Field of Dreams and how crazy it is about a guy who just like builds a diamond out his back, and there's all these like ghost rules about like if you step across the diamond, you're not a ghost anymore.
Yeah. It was so strange. It's like such an earnest film that you really like have to buy into it. And I thought I would really like it because it has a lot of men in it. And I do like men, but then it also had a lot of sport, and I don't like sport. So
Hey, you
there was
like
that.
challengers.
I do like challenges. I think the men to sport ratio, though, for that really, woof. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, and I also think that you couldn't call Luca Guadagnino's Challengers an earnest sports
No, you
movie.
really
I mean,
could not.
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna get us there.
I've
But
seen that film 3 times. I still don't know how tennis works.
No, me either. No, absolutely not. But I know how it feels to be the tennis ball, which I would say arguably is the most important. And then I had a little Back to the Future marathon that I hadn't seen them for years and years and years. And that was really lovely. So it's been like nice. A lot of
What's your
like,
fave?
What is my fave? I think the first one is my favorite. I think the second one is really, really good. I think the second one is Hall of Fame sequel, like really, really clever. I think the third one is just men in cowboy hats, which is fair enough, actually. Like the third one is such a little like fantasy of like, what if we rode around with our little cowboy hats and our little horses, and then there was a train, and then maybe the train flies. It's very like that, and I think that's so nice. And it's also then just like Michael J. Fox in like disguises. Like, you know the point in the series where it like shifts and he starts playing every single character? Like he plays his own daughter in drag, and then he plays his like great grandfather with like an Irish accent, and it's just him in disguises. I also do quite like that. It becomes very camp. But yeah, that was really fun, and that's been my time.
that sounds lovely.
Thank you. It was.
Ellie, lovely or fascist or some third option that I haven't thought of.
Somewhere between that spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been watching a lot. Like, I haven't been on the pod for a while, so there's been a lot that I've seen that you've discussed. Like, it was a bit of a shame that I didn't get to discuss Die My Love, which was great, or Pillion, which was great, but maybe I will share some thoughts on our end of year roundup. I didn't have to watch Alpha, which was
You really
like I dodged a bullet.
Yes.
But between all that, Dropout, like a lot of Dropout, do people know Dropout? It's like it's this independent streaming service based in America that does shows like Game Changer and Make Some Noise. So it's very like improv comedy based. Ooh. And it's become like a weird kind of like American counterpart to Taskmaster, because like they have this format where they can kind of change the rules every single episode and they bring different comedians on. So it's a lot of fun. The service is definitely worth checking out. Like, I've got a friend's login and they allow password sharing, and it's very cheap, it's very affordable, and there's just loads of entertainment on there. They've just put up Demia Dijuibe's special, which was
backflip one.
Yeah, Demia Dijuibe will do one backflip, which I think was 2024's like best newcomer at the Fringe, something like that.
Did I tell you when I matched with him on Field?
You did, because I remember I've also had a friend who matched with him on Field, but then he unmatched with them when they made a joke about pegging.
Yes,
so,
you told me that.
So he's a great comedian, but maybe a coward.
Yeah, maybe a coward. Yeah, he also didn't reply to me.
Yeah.
But I think I also was a coward, because I should have just been like, I recognize you from Letterboxd.
Yeah.
But instead I was just like, oh yeah, hi.
Well,
and then,
I mean, I loved that show when I saw it at the Fringe, and it's got all the same great stuff in it on Dropout. He's still just as sexy, just as funny, except when he goes into the audience to make like random audience members scat on the spot, it's a lot less terrifying, because it's not going to be me.
Yeah, that is better.
So Dropout, if you look it up, I'm sure that you might have seen like clips of their shows, because that's kind of how their model works. They kind of clip parts of their shows and then share them around on socials. But I would recommend checking out if you are looking for something to watch between Taskmaster seasons.
Wonderful. The only thing I can think of, I probably mentioned this last time, Jimmy, I don't think I did. Rewatched RoboCop, still very good, still very violent, still not, I wouldn't say fascist, I would say making commentary about fascism. Paul Verhoeven, still the GOAT, and it has inspired the thing I haven't mentioned to anyone, that at some point we should just start doing episodes about specific directors, and we can just like clip some of the bits from old episodes.
I think we've done that before.
Well, we could do it again. And that chat is partly inspired by the thing that we're about to instantaneously segue into now. Jafar Panahi is back. I've just received a text message. Let me just start again. What are you laughing at?
It really sounded like he texted you.
I'm just hearing on WhatsApp that Jafar Panahi's back with a new film. Jafar Panahi is back. The Iranian director and all-round legend has returned. We are talking about his new film, It Was Just an Accident, which won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. But obviously, news and events must precede this discussion of the film, because I believe it was yesterday at the time we were recording that he got, was it a year in absentia 1 year jail sentence from the Iranian government.
And travel ban.
And a travel ban for his filmmaking activities. Jafar Panahi, as discussed previously on this podcast, legend of guerrilla on-the-run filmmaking.
We love him.
A man who once delivered a film to the Cannes Film Festival baked into a cake. A man who has directed multiple extremely high-quality feature films remotely. Mm-hmm. The only man who could ever justify the use of Zoom or Google Meet on a regular basis. A top lad all round. But yes, his new film, It Was Just an Accident, won the Palme d'Or at Cannes this year. And it follows so it starts with a man, his wife and his child in a car accident. When they take the car to get fixed, the mechanic in the garage believes that the man who has brought his crashed car in was his jailer and torturer at an Iranian government prison, and then goes on this kind of like journey around the place, rounding up collecting various people who were also tortured by this person. And it goes into these areas about revenge and about community fostered in the face of terrible things happening to you and all this kind of stuff. And yes, it is, I would say it's not spoiling anything, and he say that it's a good film.
Yeah.
But you actually spoke to Jafar
Yeah.
last week.
Yes.
What's he like?
Oh,
What's he like? Nice lad?
Oh, he was actually really scary. Like, it was scary because he's very, very cool. And also, Iranian men are a bit grumpy. So I was a bit like, oh my God, it's like talking to my uncle. But it was.
It's like talking to my uncle if my uncle was a legend.
Yeah, my uncle was a legend. So yeah, no, it was really nice. He's like very clever, but does not have time for bullshit. So if you say something that he doesn't like, he will kind of be like, no, I don't agree, which I do respect, actually. Yeah, I really, really loved this film. I think it's very interesting thinking about this film alongside Mohammad Rasoulov's Seed of the Sacred Fig that came out earlier this year, because I think both of them were jailed at the same time in 2022, right before the Women Life Freedom kind of protests and movement. And both of their films that came out this year, I think, are kind of their post-prison films. They're both informed by the lives of prison interrogators and prison like torturers, and kind of looking at that mentality and how people kind of move on past that and the kind of clash between them and society. So they're really interesting films to put in conversation with each other. This one is a lot more, it's just very classic Panahi, even though it's his first narrative film, I think, since Offside, possibly. I think all of his other films since then that have been made under his filmmaking ban have in some way like featured him, have been these like meta productions, whereas this one is a much more straightforward narrative feature that is about this like group of people who are maybe trying to get revenge on this person. It kind of unfolds a little bit like a farce in places. Like, it's really, really funny. I've read interviews with him where people have asked him about that, and he's like, it's not meant to be funny. He's like, that's just how our culture is, which I think is true. And I think it's the humor sort of comes from the fact that there is just like a veneer of like etiquette and politeness in Iranian society that no amount of revenge can really like undermine. And so you have this kind of like clash between like different cultures and different kind of like strata of society. But it's like a really, really complex film about, what does it mean both to kind of live after the repercussions and effects of trauma, but also what does it mean to kind of, like, if you live in a state that is perpetrating this level of violence, what does it mean for you to not participate in that? So how does, in a way that is much more complex than just like, nonviolent resistance, it really is like, what are the boundaries between like behaving like them and also having like your own kind of like agency? And in that way it becomes like a big comment on, who actually gets to make the rules about this country and how it functions. And to a certain extent, it's a really hopeful film because it's saying that it still does exist in a way at the level of the people, that the people do have some sort of agency over themselves. Just really, I don't know. I love him. I love him so much. Like, it's so beautiful. I can't believe how good his films look, even if they're like done under the like most crazy filming conditions. I don't know. I just think he's so great. I think he's so great.
It is a very, very good film. I think it's unfair of him to say that it's not supposed to be funny. Like, when I say to you, when the oaf hits the jailer with his van door, and you're trying to tell me that that's not supposed to be funny. Absolutely. What? It's like a very kind of Coen Brothers moment of just like he sees him, and then just doinks him onto the ground.
It's like Weekend at Bernie's at some point where they're dragging around this body and like or this guy and putting him in like coffins and locking him up, and but it's also like it starts as a farce, but it also becomes like an existential comedy, in that it's like there's like lots of references to Beckett, Waiting for Godot, and then there's literally a scene where there's two men in a desert with like a tree, and it's like, okay, this is clearly what he's going for. It's like Beckett kind of comedy, I guess. But I agree. I totally agree with everything and he said. Actually, it's quite hard to follow. It's like it's like just a really profound film about like the scars and the trauma of living under a regime, and like how do you react as a person? Do you react with humanity, or do you become like, you know, as bad as the people who have like wronged you? But it's also like getting the gang back together again film as well. Like I love how like it just builds, and he like this guy who's like did a rash thing and just kidnapped this man he suspects. He doesn't quite know if he is the jailer. This guy Pegleg. He starts to get second opinions from like the people who he was like in jail with, and he gets like some sensible ones, like this kind of really wise sage woman who's like, she's a photographer and she seems to have like her head screwed on, and then there's like some wild cards, like this guy who's like a total maverick who's like really angry and basically just wants to kill the guy, and then there's like he drags along a bride and her hapless groom.
Yeah, that's
so
funny as well.
Yeah.
That bit.
and then it's a classic Iranian film, and they're all like a lot of moving around in cramped conditions within the back of this van as they're driving around and trying to work out what to do with this person. Like a great film, just great filmmaking, just in terms of like pure minute to minute enjoyment, but like so profound, like thinking about especially Panahi's his life in over the last kind of 10, 15 years, and like what's going on in Iran right now, and just like how he can make such a deep, moving, profound film, but also make it hilarious. Is it's really impressive.
Yeah. Have I ever told you guys, just before I come to you, Ellie, have I ever told you guys about my friend who is a philosopher of a number? He's a philosopher of a number of things, but one of his main research interests is the idea of revenge.
No.
And like
What?
the philosophical, like, kind of justifications and like underpinning of like our concepts of revenge, and why it's sometimes like people feel it's necessary to take revenge, and they sometimes don't feel that way, and how that kind of how that's dealt with in different kind of like philosophical traditions and like structures.
No, you haven't.
Okay, well, I have a friend.
Is it Jafar Panahi who just texts you, because that's exactly what this film's about?
Well, the thing is, I was going to say I need to tell my friend about this film, but I was going to say to you, Ellie, that it's as a way of bringing you into the conversation, not just talk about my friend Jafar Panahi. He's not Jafar Panahi. That it's actually like it's a very like well-made, funny, interesting film, but actually like the kind of underlying, it's actually like it's one of these films where it's very accessible, but it's also very complex. Which I particularly enjoyed.
Yeah, I think everyone's right. It is like a very like funny, very beautiful, and very profound film, and quite like chaotic and shambolic in a way that's sometimes really, really entertaining. But I would say that there is this kind of, you're right, existential, or sometimes even quite like mythical quality to it. Like Jamie, you said that it's a film sort of about getting the band back together, and I found something kind of quest-like about that, especially because like the main character Vahid pretty much instantly like gets this guy, but stops just short of killing him, and then is like going on this big roundabout journey, talking to all these people, trying to find someone who can somehow confirm his identity. But he didn't need to confirm his identity to get him this far, right? To kidnap this guy. And, you know, the first person we meet is this old man in a bookshop who kind of warns him, like, instead of being the wise old man who gives our hero his quest, he's actually saying, like, turn back now, it's your only chance, and this won't be satisfying. And that's like a voice that doesn't really come up much for the rest of the film. But it gets a little bit headier as we kind of like adopt this band of adventurers, and it's a bit like an anti-Noble Quest, a Noble Quest turned on its head, where like they're not necessarily stronger as a group for adding more and more people. In fact, Vahid can only hear the sound of the peg leg that makes him think that this is the man that he's got, and then he gets in this photographer, and she can recognize the scent, and then but no one can quite confirm it in a way that justifies the entire group participating in this violence. So I just found that really interesting, because their quest, which is so prolonged and so chaotic, and a big source of like some of the quite strange comedy of it, it's not just about confirming this guy's identity. It's kind of about like hoping that you yourself are permitted to take the revenge you want. And like that's the reason that they're all coming together, but they're all reluctant to do that, is because I don't know. It's just it's not a single character going through an arc. It's an entire group of people about, you know, the very communal and shared nature of a violent act, which I think speaks to the wider themes that it connects to, like, again, like a regime that has a kind of impact on an entire nation of people, and how that culture has been shaped by the violence they're exposed to. So It is. It's very philosophical in a way, and it reminds me a lot of, you mentioned the Muhammad Rasulov Seed of a Sacred Fig, where you've got this huge sort of like national conflict taking place in the background, and on a sort of more micro level, you've got a small family dynamic that's being torn apart in very much the same way. So like a really, really intelligently written film, I can see why it got the Palme d'Or, and like deeply engaging from the moment you start watching it. So really, really enjoyed it.
It's so interesting that Iranian filmmakers don't feel the need to like stick to realism. You know, if you think of British filmmakers who make political films, they tend to like be quite realist. They don't feel comfortable going into fantasy or like you say comedy farce or like, you know that Seed of a Sacred Fig is like a pure thriller. You know, like genre filmmaking. Like it's weird that our filmmakers only have a kind of very kind of basic flat line way of doing it, you know, which is almost like borrowing from documentary or something like that.
I think though there is a way that they see themselves differently. Like when I was talking to him, he I think does see himself as a realist filmmaker, and he was talking about like how he's definitely not a political filmmaker, but because for him like a political filmmaker is almost like a propaganda filmmaker, whereas he was like, yeah, I'm like a social filmmaker, like a social realist filmmaker, and like talking about like, yeah, you have to represent like the truth. So before, if you showed like a woman without like the hijab, that would be like a lie, but now after Masa Amini, there are women out in the street without hijab, so now you have to show it. Like to not show it would be the lie. And so there is this kind of ascription that they have to, yeah, this idea of the truth and representation of society. But you're right that it's just like so much more of an interesting idea of what like realism can look like, you know, rather than this very like kind of flattened documentary or like very bleak actually. I think a lot of it, like the British stuff, is tonally sad.
I think also maybe we're just desensitized to a certain kind of realism because like I think that there's maybe an idea within our culture that like revenge is this big like dramatic thing, and to go on a revenge plot you'd need to be some sort of like Hollywood hero, and we just simply wouldn't believe like a dumpy guy in a van wearing a polo shirt would be like capable of going on this journey. But maybe that's just to do with the fact that like Hollywood in general has kind of like etched normal looking people out, and now everyone has like the iPhone face. So maybe it's an industrial thing.
Yeah, and it's also maybe a reflection of the fact that if you are an Iranian filmmaker, you are very used to the idea that authority is genuinely not to be trusted, and that there is like there's a layer that you are being told and a layer that you can understand, and they're not necessarily the same. Whereas British people are fucking whinging sticklers for the rules, who at their heart believe that the people who are in power probably do have their best interests at heart, they just can't quite work out how to get it right. And there's maybe a little bit of that like, I think as much as people in Britain certainly, and America until recently, probably thought, oh, well, you know, this government's rubbish, and but at least they're not going to nick me off the street and send me off to El Salvador. Now, maybe things have changed a little bit with our cousins to the west, but I think most people in Britain probably do still have that ingrained perception that, like, as much as they might complain about some of the things that the state gets up to, they are probably operating under the pretense that it could be worse. Whereas Iranian filmmakers are probably are being realist by saying, you know, actually, things are sometimes like this. They do be like this sometimes.
Yeah, and this is, for us, unlivable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really true.
Yeah. But anyway, right, we're fun. And after taking all that very interesting, very philosophical, funny, sad, exciting, well-made filmmaking, let's reduce it down to a numerical value between 1 and 5 and say how good we thought it was. Jamie, did you think this film was good? And if so, by how much?
I thought it was excellent. 4.5.
Nice.
Maybe add an extra half for just the bravery of Panahi. Just the fact that he makes these films in the face of like facing imprisonment. So
yeah, Edgar Wright's not going to jail for making The Running Man. That's
maybe
for sure.
Should though.
I would also say 4.5. Yeah.
Ellie?
Yeah, 4.5.
Yeah, I think probably 4.5 is about fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very good film.
Yeah.
It
he's that guy.
was just an accident by the top lad. Jafar Panahi is out this Friday, the 5th of December, at cinemas across the UK, and it'll be on Mubi fairly soon after that, I think. Well, from one slightly grumpy top lad with a pair of glasses who's constantly fighting the power to another, it is Laura Poitras' Seymour Hersh documentary Cover Up. So Seymour Hersh is the octogenarian muckraking journalist who has, for the last however many years, been finding out things that the American government's been up to and then writing about them in the newspapers and sometimes in the news magazines. Seymour Hersh was one of the instrumental people in uncovering some of America's extremely bad, not good, wrong, do not like, big thumbs down activities in Vietnam. He was also around at the time when people like Richard Nixon were getting themselves into all manner of trouble, doing lots of investigations into corporate malfeasance as well, and a big kind of figure in the world of American investigative journalism. Laura Poitras and Mark Obenhaus have been trying to get Seymour Hersh to agree to do a documentary for decades, and now he has. Seymour Hersh relies a lot on anonymous sources, and he loves to annoy people who are in charge of big things like the CIA. He is another ledge with glasses. Ellie, what did you think of this film? Laura Poitras, of course, made our, was it 2023 film of the year? All the Beauty and the Bloodshed?
Yeah,
Or was it 2024? Or was it 2022?
I think it might be 2022.
I think 2023.
Okay. While I speak to Ellie,
gonna Google this.
somebody look this up.
Yeah.
So
I think Jamie's
Laura
wrong.
Poitras of All the Beauty and the Bloodshed and Citizen 4 and a couple of other documentaries whose names escape me. Ellie, what did you think of Cover Up?
I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really, really well-made documentary. There's a point where Seymour Hersh is talking about his early days as a journalist working in the Pentagon and how surprised he is that these like young soldiers are willing to just open up about the terrible things they've participated in. And he says this really interesting line, which I think says a lot about the documentary, which is that he just had to get out of the way of the story, which I think is a bit of a journalism cliche by now, but it is kind of an ideology behind this because Poitras does have like a very kind of like soft touch. And when I think about All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, like the best part of that I remember was just this very like straightforward way of showing you Nan Goldin's photography, just in a montage of picture after picture with little to no audio behind it, just kind of letting the work speak for itself. Now, Seymour Hersh is not a photographer but a writer, but Poitras really still does just like allow him to tell his own story the way he wants it, and you get the sense that she is actually like being very like withholding, but making it into the edit are still a few moments where Hersh like gets really angry at a question that she asks and kind of like interrupts the interview, and you get an understanding of what about this guy kind of like kept him from giving this interview for the first time in 20 years. So it's like there is this really interesting thing where it is a documentary that will inform you about the kind of these very specific historical atrocities the United States government have committed, but it is also a struggle between two journalists. One is a writer, one is a filmmaker, about how to tell this story. And given that it is a story about cover-ups and controlling the narrative, that's especially interesting. And yeah, like it's just, I don't know, like again, much like with All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, like there's a lot to learn here and there's like a very generous use of archival footage. I didn't know as much about Nan Goldin's work as I do about how much the US or like the US Army is like a fucking horrible monster, how awful the CIA are. So I feel like I don't know personally like how effective a tool it is at educating, but like it still is really, really interesting. It's still really, really interesting to see it through this kind of lens and through Hersh's own kind of telling of it. I think, again, compared to Bloodshed, it has like a lot more of a conventional structure. So Bloodshed kind of felt like it was split in half, really, between Nan Goldin's work in the 80s covering the AIDS crisis and the modern day covering the OxyContin crisis. Mm-hmm. Whereas this is just a lot more like a straight up biography, again, kind of told in the way that he wants to tell it. And earlier this year, we discussed Zodiac Killer Project at the Edinburgh Film Festival, and how since that film put it into words, I have realised how sometimes formulaic these Netflix documentaries can sometimes appear. And I think at the very beginning, like he's sitting in his office getting mic'd up and he's like, so where do you want me to begin? And I'm like, that's like a catchphrase now. That's like the catchphrase of every interview subject at the beginning of every Netflix documentary. But I did really enjoy it. Interesting theming, a really interesting approach. And yeah, just a strong like wealth of archival footage, I do think makes this a little bit separate from the usual stuff that you'll see in like the Netflix documentary section.
Yes, that is an absolutely bonkers tidbit that I missed out in the initial telling. This Laura Poitras documentary about Seymour Hersh's continued muckraking against the American intelligence establishment is on Netflix, and it comes on Netflix on Boxing Day. What the fucking hell's going on? Sometimes you think, you hear about a film, you're like, that'll be like a little rinky-dink documentary that plays at like 4, let's be honest, art house cinemas to nobody. And then you maybe have to track it down on DVD later. But no, this is going to be, everyone's going to be having their Christmas dinner leftover sandwiches and sitting down to hear about the My Lai massacre. So that's going to be a fun Boxing Day. Jamie, I'm going to ask you now to tell me about this film.
Yeah, I like this. Laura Poitras, she seems to have a good. Well, I've actually only seen 2 of her films, but like it seems like she likes to make these portraits of people whose actual story can be widened out and tell like a much wider story. Like that seems to be like what she's done here. So like she seems to be interested in Hersh, but she's also interested in what Hersh's journalism said about America for the last 50 years. So I mean, first of all, I love him. I love how grumpy he is. I love he's like this kind of like muckraking guy. You know, he's just dogged. You can see how like you have to be this type of person to be. You know, he doesn't care if you like him. He seems to be a pain in the arse to everyone. And yeah, that's how he gets his leads. He's just like he doesn't. He's not a. He's a bit of a grump, you know. And
he's not a fake ass bitch.
Exactly.
Seymour Hersh is a grumpy prick.
Yeah,
but he's gonna stick to his guns on it.
Exactly, and he tries to quit a few times because he's also really paranoid. He's pretty sure that Laura Poitras is like stealing his information, and like he can't show my he's got these like bits of paper which. Who could make out what they're saying? He says, "You're going to expose them all my contacts, all my leads, all my sources." So like he's got a kind of certain paranoia about him as well, which I guess you have to be if you don't trust. Basically, that paranoia is why he's such a good journalist, because he never doesn't trust what's exposed, what's shown on the surface. He wants to dig in and get to the real truth. It's also interesting this, she's been trying to make this film for 20 years. It almost seems like this is the perfect time for the film to be made, though, because so much of like what Hersh uncovered sort of reflects what's going on today, and I guess the sad thing is how little the world has changed, but also how much the world has changed. So like, when he is exposing like the My Lai massacre in Vietnam, it completely changes the way America sees itself. He was probably one of the first journalists to ever tell America actually we're the bad guys. That's like I think it totally changed the way America saw itself. And similarly, like he done lots of things, but like Abu Ghraib, when those pictures exposed, it like a lot of people, it changed a lot of way the people who were like gung ho about the war on terror completely like changed their mind about it. And what's a bit sad is like he's still. We see him still doing reporting in the film. We see him, he's doing stuff on Gaza. He's like, we see a couple of phone calls where his editors calls him and is clearly trying to get work out where a source is from. And he says, "Oh, it's just a guy, and it's just one of the Saudis. Don't worry about it. Like, just print it." Like, he is like kind of funny about like where his sources come from. Or you can see he's speaking to someone on the ground who's like photographs and stuff, and he's trying to work out where they come from. But what is sad is you realise that it doesn't seem like all the pictures that are coming out of Gaza are creating the kind of like turning point that was like his reporting from Vietnam did, or his reporting from Iraq or like Abu Ghraib did. So like in a way it's like it's a funny film because it's kind of I've seen it described as like a celebration of journalism, and I guess it is. It's celebrating a guy like Hersh, but actually it's also saying that like what's interesting about the film is like it says how much of like the media is like corrupt, and it actually shows that so many people were reporting like the opposite of what Hersh was saying for so long until he kind of proved it, or like when he worked at the New York Times, like Henry Kissinger had like a hotline to the editor and would basically like shape stories while Hersh was like the kind of one kind of fly in the ointment that was kind of trying to tell the truth. So that it's a film that shows actually how murky just journalism has been over the years as well. As like you have great people like Hersh, and I think Bob Woodward pops up, who was one of the guys who broke Watergate. But yeah, it reminds you that actually as a kind of people, we're not like, I don't feel that this journalism is like changing the world right now the way it did back then. And I don't know if that's because it's maybe a bit more diffuse because it's across different platforms or something. But there's something a bit sad about that as well. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it made me think a lot about basically about like context collapse and how like a lot of what Seymour Hersh did, he, especially like in the earlier days, you know, sometimes things are news because they're in the newspaper, and sometimes things are content because they're on an Instagram feed. And like there's this thing that like, I think you're right to say that like there's been horrible footage and photography and like clearly documented, like as well documented as you could possibly hope, like straight up war crimes going on in various different theaters of death around the world. And like you said, oh, but how can this make a difference? And I think that so often the way that these things make a difference kind of can come down to like how the story is told. And I think one of the great like tragedies of the way that modern journalism has been kind of like subsumed into content mills like Instagram feeds and stuff, is that actually you lose so much of your power to like put the information out in a way that you'd actually want to do it and to give it the space it would need if you've got a particularly like explosive story, and to say like, actually don't give a fuck about any of the rest of this stuff just now, just pay attention to this one thing. Like when they were running those pictures from Abu Ghraib in the New Yorker, they wasn't like splitting a page with like 5 other stories. It was like, this is a big story and it is in these pages of this magazine and you're going to read it and understand what's going on.
Yeah, I think it's also that like journalism, or not even journalism, like media culture has changed a lot, right? Like I think Abu Ghraib, we had a different relationship to images, whereas like so much of what is happening with Gaza right now is that it's being like live streamed to us, right? Like the images are so accessible, whereas I think back then there was this, like the journalism would often be the sort of like portal to these things that you could otherwise not really see. And I think that shift has also, I mean, it's just desensitization, isn't it? Like we've kind of got used to the horror in a lot of ways. This film made me think about, I mean, this was the film, I think we talked about it in an earlier podcast, where I was like, it made me want to start buying a newspaper. That I was like, maybe I need to actually sit down once a week with a newspaper and read the news and not fuck around on my phone for the rest of the week. It also made me think of one of my favorite memes, which was the Washington Post had tweeted one of their stories that was like something like, this rabbit and this reindeer are best friends. And someone had retweeted and was like, this is the newspaper that broke Watergate. And I think about that every day.
Is that the one I saw somebody had like riffed on that? It was like, this kangaroo has put these, it's like this jacket has $500 in it and the kangaroo has put the jacket on and he hopping away.
It's so good. It's so good. But yeah, it's a really, yeah, it's very much a film. It's taking like this figure for sure and kind of extrapolating out of it, like about the state of journalism. But also, I think, documentary filmmaking. I think that there's something really interesting in documentaries when the subject is very resistant to having the documentary made about them. And I really like the bits where he's just like, no. And I think it kind of brings in some of that meta thing. I think All the Beauty and the Bloodshed was a much more interesting and complex film structurally because it was working at these 3 different like narrative levels. And this is a little bit more straightforward as a documentary. But yeah, you do have these really, really interesting moments where he kind of refuses, and then you kind of see glimpses into this is how a documentary structure is made. And yeah, like you were saying, it's another form of journalism in a way. And so it's like this comment on like, how do we create narrative in so many ways? And she's just really good.
There's also a fascinating bit, I can't remember what he says exactly, but it's something about like he doesn't like to psychoanalyze his sources. Like why? Because I think Laura Poitras asked, why do these people talk to you? Why do they give up so much information and potentially even when they don't like you, they tell you stuff. They just want to get it off their chest. And he says, I don't like to psychoanalyze my sources. Also, don't like to psychoanalyze myself. Right at the start, and then towards the end, you find out his wife is a psychiatrist, which is so interesting. He's like, and that was actually because it was kind of almost shocking that he had a family. Because he seems like a guy. He was most of the time he's in his office with these piles of paper. And he's like it's like he's so from a different age, like where it was like proper reporting where you would go out and he's kept everything, and he's like obsessive about it. Clearly that's why he's such a good journalist. He's so deep in it. But then he has got a family, and he does go, he seems to be like actually okay. He's not just this crazy guy who's like chasing his leads all the time.
But that is a patient woman. I'm going to say that now. Patient woman.
Yeah, it just makes me want to be a better journalist. I think actually it's like he's actually quite an inspiring figure. I obviously you had his name and stuff. I haven't read any of his books or much of his journalism, so I kind of want to go back and read it. Even though the film's quite honest as well. It's not hagiography. It says like actually fucked up a few times, and he trusted the wrong sources for a few of his big stories, and they turned out to be wrong. So, but yeah, he's quite an inspiring guy to like be brave and just plow ahead and don't trust the narratives that are fed to you. Which I think is good advice for everyone.
It also does that really, always very pleasing to me as a meta little media boy, when the flaws in the subject are reflected structurally in the film. And that like Seymour Hersh has always taken a load of heat for his use of anonymous sources and not telling you who's told him stuff. And then one of the main flaws of the film is that because it can't actually delve too much into who these sources are, and it can't really delve too much into the goofs and gaffs and getting stuff wrong about Syria and believing fake documents and stuff, because actually like there was never actually that much information made public about who these people who were telling him who these people were who were telling him stuff in the first place. So it's almost like the film can't delve too deeply into that, which is itself a flaw in the film, because then you can't actually, you're sort of working with like a limited picture. You're just told this man with this would be the Netflix trailer. This man with glasses told you all about Vietnam. Just cut to him like throwing his hands sort of slightly in the air and waving a bunch of sheets of yellow paper at you. Top lad. Right, so that was Cover Up. It is coming out in cinemas on the 5th. You can go for a cool old men with glasses double bill at the cinema. And like I say, it's coming on Netflix on Boxing Day, but what do we think out of 5? Ellie, I'll come to you first.
I would say 4.
Nice.
I would also say 4.
Jamie, what would you say?
I'm going to be really boring and also say 4. I thought it was like a really good film. So.
You know what? I'll say 4 as well.
Gorgeous.
Why not? We love old men in this house. And for our final review of 2025, a film that we wanted to talk about has got, I would say, quite an unexpected release date. And it's also going to be featuring in our Films of 2025 roundup next week, and it would be weird to have not mentioned it until now. This is Sentimental Value, which is the new film by Worst Person in the World director Joachim Trier. And it stars Stellan Skarsgård, I nearly burped there, Stellan Skarsgård, Renata Reinsve, off of Worst Person in the World. Which of the Fannings is it, Jamie? Is it Elle Fanning? Elle Fanning. And it is about let me see if I can remember this. It is about a man who is an actor. And
director.
A man who is a director. Right. I'll get this. There's a man who is a director. His daughter is an actor. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And he wants the daughter to be in a play?
Film.
He wants the daughter to be in a film about their life.
Well, he says it's not about. It's actually about his mother, but he says it's not about his mother.
Okay. I feel like at this point, I can safely hand off to Jamie Dunn. Having prepared the ground, I would say not in a conventional sense, but the ground has been tilled. Ellie's got her scarf up to avoid corpsing. Which
Your nose earlier was like so cute. It was like the tip of it.
Yeah, cold nose, okay.
This is a level of support that I appreciate. Also, we took the pop shield off Ellie's microphone, and now that they have
I've made my own pop shield.
Ellie brought their own pop shield from home. Jamie, what are you going to do to try and one up that? Are you going to tell me about the basic plot details of Sentimental Value?
I'll fill in a few gaps that you've missed. In a way, it's like a conventional plot. In some ways, and it's like quite familiar. It's about a family that's fractured. So like it's about two sisters. One's Nora, who you mentioned, Rena Reitzver, who's an actress, and then her other sister Agnes is a historian, and they've just lost their mother, who's just died. That's how it kind of opens the funeral. And then at the funeral turns up Gustav, who's the dad.
Played by Stellan Skarsgård, I believe.
And he's estranged. He left them years ago to go and pursue his film career. He's clearly not been in touch much since, and they're kind of a bit put out that he's here, to be honest. But he owns the house. He's been inherited the house from the mother, and he wants to use the house as the set for his new film, and he wants Nora to be the lead in the film. And it's like a lot of the films I'm trying to convince her to do that. And I should say the house is really important. Like this is a house, first of all, I want to live in this house. Mm-hmm. It's one of my favourite houses ever in cinema. It's so warm and lived in, and the film's almost like from the house's point of view. Like there's a kind of narrator who I think is meant to be the house, and the house is like telling the story of the people who lived in it. So that's really fun. Yeah, and like I say, the story's quite familiar, but like so it tells about this kind of family, and you suspect that they might get closer together across the running time. But what's so great about the film is there's so much more to it, so like it's a film about family history, but not just this family that's like goes back into their past, and like it branches off into other members of the family, and it's also a film about filmmaking. The film will like suddenly you'll see like a scene from Gustav's old film, which turns out to be a flashback instead of a scene. And there's like some great jokes about Netflix and the struggle of trying to make a film like when you haven't made a film for a long time. So it's a really rich text. It's a bit like, I feel like when I'm watching a Joachim Trier film, it's a bit like how my brain works when I read a book. Do you ever like read a book and you're really deep into like a narrative or something, and you're like, oh, I'm really enjoying this. And then you'll get to like, something will come up that you've never heard of or you don't really know much about, like you don't have a good sense of. So like I don't know, the Cultural Revolution or Henry James or something like that. Like, and then you go off in like a little rabbit hole. You'll leave the narrative and go like quickly and watch a YouTube video or like a Wikipedia entry or something like that. That's what watching this film's like. So you'll be just really like engrossed in this narrative about a family that's like falling apart. It's really funny and rich and sort of sad at the same time, but then it'll just shoot off in this kind of fun little diversion and tell you a story about someone completely different who is like very tangential to the story, but is actually really becomes quite rich and important at the end. And yeah, I love how he does that. Like this is just full of these little digressions which just fly by. He's really good at pacing. He just like tells you this quick little story quickly in montage, and then I'll go back to the main story without you feeling jarring or anything like that. So he's like, yeah, technically he's a great filmmaker, and like I say, tonally this film is like, it goes from like great sadness, like horrific stuff like Nazis and like suicide and stuff, but it's also hilarious. There's a scene where Gustav turns up and he goes to his grandson's birthday party, and he gives him some DVDs of Michael Haneke to this 9-year-old boy. He hands him like the piano teacher and say, "This will teach you everything you need to know about women." And then the mum's like, "Thank you. We don't even have a DVD player, but thanks, Dad." So it's like a really funny film, and a bit like a really poignant one as well. I thought it was wonderful. Like really, I think maybe my favourite of his films so far. He's just like technically very good filmmaker. This is like so easy to watch, but it's like so deep and rich, and says a lot of truthful things I think about like family relationships and how they're very difficult, and how like actually some people are just incapable of showing the real love they feel for one another, which is like actually quite sad but true, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I loved this film so much. It is tied with Sinners as my favorite film of the year. I think it's like sublime. Like I think it's fucking extraordinary. I really, really, really loved Worst Person in the World as well. Like I thought it was like a perfect film, and this is miles beyond that for me, just because of like how good it is. It's so, like you were saying, it's just so expansive. Like I just can't believe that someone could say so much contained in like a film. Like all of these like weird like little digressions and the interlayering is so gorgeous and like almost like breathless. Like it just felt so, I don't know, like the translation almost of like what it means and feels to like live a life, I thought was like so stunning. I think in the same way that Worst Person in the World was a lot about like the failures of romantic narrative, that like you have this person who is trying in a way to kind of fulfill this idea of who she wants to be or who she thinks she wants to be and what she wants, and she can never quite live up to that. There's always like a gap between what she wants and then what she actually gets and how that feels for her. I think this is a really, really similar one, but kind of translated into family dynamics and art making as well, and like what does it mean to actually like love another person and to kind of exist in the shadow of the things that your parents did to you, and to just have to reckon with that. Like, how do you deal with the weight of your entire life and your parents' entire lives and all of these things just in this kind of day-to-day way? And I just think it's fucking remarkable. Like, it's so good. It's so good. Like, all the performances are really great. It's really interesting as a film about language. So it's his first film really to have an English language speaker, right? Or no?
No, he did do another English language film
Did
with
he do another English language one? Okay.
with Jesse Eisenberg and stuff.
Yes, yeah, you're right. Yeah. But this one is like, it's mostly in Norwegian. And then you have like the bits with Elle Fanning, because he then casts Elle Fanning in the role that he wants his daughter to play and tries to translate the film that he's making into English. And so then, it's a lot as well about like, how do you kind of like express yourself? What are the natural forms of like expression, and what are the ways that people try and like force themselves into languages, both literal and metaphorical, that don't work for them? It's just so good. It's so like tender and beautiful and sad, and I cannot wait to watch it again. Like, it was so great. I think you'll really like it, Peter. If you liked Worst Person in the World, I think you'll really like it.
And it's so good to see Stellan Skarsgård get a role that's
a proper role.
Yeah, like he's just been doing like bit parts in Hollywood for ages, and he's always good in those. But like, he's such a good actor, like such good technique. Like, all his scenes with like his scenes with Elle Fanning are great as well. Like it's like his scenes with his daughters, but then this kind of replacement daughter almost is like, and it's you also see that. I mean, this is such a true thing about families. I would always like. I mean, this is getting a bit too personal, but like, you see when your parents like act differently or to another child who's you bring your friend round, like, oh my god, how come you can't be like this normally with me?
Oh,
like,
I swear.
This is like just things parents do. How come you treat this person so nicely, and then be like, so like it goes into that, and it's like such a. He's great. He's like so good, and like she's great as well. There's this amazing scene. She's an actor, and she's doing the first night of a play, and she's like in a freak out, which is hilarious but poignant as well. Yeah, it's just full of great performances. Elle Fanning, I thought, was really good as well. Like, kind of quite a small role, but it's quite important.
Yeah.
And the sister, I think the sister's not been talked about enough. I can't actually, which is really bad. I can't remember the actor's name, but she's fantastic as well. Like a lot of it is about that kind of sister relationship and how like these. Two girls have like basically brought each other up because like essentially their family fell apart and how they kind of like that's all they have, really good.
Nice. Well, I look forward to seeing it. Incredible. It's coming out on Boxing Day.
Yeah, it's not wild.
Yeah. A nice, yeah.
In a way, I think it's a good film to see with the family over
Christmas.
Christmas.
Drag your mother and be like, look at that.
Explain yourselves. So that was Sentimental Value. Yeah, out via movie on Boxing Day, and it'll be on streaming after that. Jamie, out of 5.
I mean, it's really grown on me, actually. I think maybe a 5. Is that crazy? I didn't really give 5s too much, but like, yeah, probably a 5.
Yeah, I'm a 5, definitely.
Okay, so it's 5 out of 5. Yeah. That's interesting. Maybe that will have some bearing on our Films of the Year list next week. I mean, it definitely will. I've said it 3 times now. So yeah. Next time, we're going to be talking about our top 10 films of the year that was 2025. And we're actually going to be talking about the Skinny's top 10 films. And we're going to be doing that thing of like relitigating something that's already been decided by saying that those decisions were wrong and that actually these were the best films. A bit on like, oh, well, these are the films that we should have talked about. Yeah. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That's the next episode of the podcast. I'll say thank you all for being on this episode of the podcast. Thanks, Ellie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Annie.
Thank you.
Cheers, Jamie.
Cheers, Pierre.
Yes, this has been the CineSkinny. We'll be back next week, and then we're going to go on our Christmas holidays. I'm going to eat loads of sweets. Yeah, we're going to party. Anyway, my feet are getting really cold. So yeah, we are done. This podcast is over. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.